Good evening and welcome to Interface. My name is Rams. The Constitution guarantees the independence of the judiciary and makes it mandatory to access justice. But is justice accessible to all? We are referred in ensuring this. Is our guest tonight. You may join this discussion, comment on SABC 3 or send a text message to 337. Mr. Justice Mwepe.
Good evening.
I think that you just got retired, and I was looking at your resume and realized that your career as an attorney started on the 15th of June 1976, one day before that.
Well, that is indeed so. It's quite a long time ago. Yes, I got admitted as an attorney then on that.
A very wonderful 36 years.
Well, yes, I'm happy with what I've been doing for the past 36 years because myself chose the profession. I followed paths that were ahead of me. I did so. I have no regrets about it.
Let's just focus a bit on 13 years as Judge President of the High Court of North and South Gauteng. You found the right office when you walked in, and just of early days of transition in South Africa. How did you cope with the challenges, and what were the highlights of your time?
Well, indeed, there were challenges that I found there, as you said, right bench, and one of the challenges that I was facing, the court was as representative as possible. Respect that. By the way, when I got appointed Judge President, I was the black judge in Pretoria, and there was only one black judge in. When I became Judge President, there was actually on the floor. So one of my tasks was to ensure that the bench was as representative as. We have gone some distance now, but of course you do those things all by yourself. You get the support of colleagues. You get the support. And so on and so forth.
When we promoted in the week and told everybody that we're going to be talking to you, we got an Itsepo Manaswe, who's well of you to speak about transformation in your court, but he said it was actually the deputy in charge and not you.
Well, it's a big court alone. Remember, when we speak of the North and now we are talking over 80 judges. In fact, I'm assisted by 2 deputy judges, President, precisely to run that court alone. You have got to delegate some of your colleagues, even ordinary judges. And don't pick your deputies. They are appointed by the Judicial Service Commission, and comes to help me. It doesn't matter whether he's a Fanamere or a Muja Mabote. I don't pick judges president, and I have all my colleagues, be they men or women, be they.
Let's stick to the issue of transformation. At your was quoted as saying transformation is no longer about into the judiciary. There are added factors, but transformation on racial basis still matters a lot in this country.
Except that we shouldn't get too obsessed with it, but it is still very. And we, especially at my 2 courts, Pretoria and Johannesburg, more than 50% of the people of color. Well, they are women, but they are not many as them to be, but they are women. So I think that some distance, and that statement should be understood in that context.
Because some people then say transformation always.
Oh yes, that is so. I think the ideal thing is, of course, as representative as possible without compromising quality. Nice about that because it's not. Well, sometimes, as it should happen, when human beings are involved with any project, such as appointing judges, they can and make a weak appointment, but that an exception than the rule. So generally, I'm quite happy of the judges we have.
A feeling, and there's been studies to show that trust in our courts in South Africa has been declining over the years, although it shows more confidence in the courts post 1994. Is that your observation too?
There's been a decline in the confidence the confidence have in our courts. On the contrary, a fantastic increase in the confidence that the people have. You consider where we come from. We come from a situation where people, majority, absolutely had no confidence in the courts, not in the administration of justice. But now, for a variety that the bench is representative, I think people have got a lot in the administration of justice and in the judiciary.
However, this confidence may be tempered by comments when we hear people judiciary is either not independent or the government. There's been a lot of in the judiciary or with the judiciary.
Debate should be whether there should be any debate at all. Any politician can successfully interfere with any judge. To allow themselves to be interfered with by a politician, then they don't deserve. So I there's been of interference, and I believe that our judiciary is independence, which I think we all value. There may be people, for some reason or other, are not satisfied with certain judgments, but that's the way to get to what you want. Sometimes you don't, and you may take it elsewhere other than to the judiciary.
Do you speak of the independence of the judiciary? The concern seems to be solely the ANC-led government.
So, in the sense that, perhaps not surprising, it's the ANC which is in government. When somebody in government speaks that more seriously than someone who is not in power, personally, I don't see any reason why people should be. Whatever any politician can say about as far as the independence is concerned. As I've said before, it is for the judges themselves to safeguard their independence. If a politician does something which undermines, should declare it unconstitutional. If Parliament makes an act that undermines the independence of the judiciary, it is to declare that act unconstitutional. So to see in which way anybody can successfully that can only happen if judges themselves.
So any comment made by a minister, any other person should not matter as long as the judges themselves have the integrity and
at all. And sometimes, quite frankly,
but shouldn't we worry? Seem to be interfering with the judiciary.
As I say, worry about that because very often such comments follow judgments with which people are not comfortable. In that respect, it is not only politicians who criticize judges. People who don't get what they wanted, who begin to criticize judges and the judiciary. We have had instances where people launched attacks on individual judges.
We'll go back to that because I want us to come back and talk about criticism. We're going to talk about that matter. 33726 is our. Welcome back. Our guest is Judge of the Supreme Court of South Africa. About the issue of criticism of the judiciary thought out there. The one school of thought says sensitive. They've got thin skins. They don't want. And the other school of thought says that people are over criticizing the judiciary. Is the judiciary too sensitive to criticism?
I wouldn't say so. In fact, I think they should welcome and does welcome constructive criticism. What could be worrying would be uninformed, which serves no purpose other than to disparage the other than to cause people to lose confidence in the a very important institution, and we should be careful authority because it's a pillar in our democracy.
I've got Facebook comments here. We've asked people to send Facebook comments now. 3 comments, by the way, on a subject that you may have on. Spy tapes must be revealed, and President Zuma in contempt of court. And Ben Tusofa has been under attack while Judge Ngwepe didn't give guidance. Judges are being the master. South Africa needs judges who will be free from the ANC to hear Judge Ngwepe's opinion on spy tape saga. Spy tape saga.
I have no opinion, and I shouldn't have an opinion. By the way, speaking of that, you may recall that the Sowetan reported that I had expressed myself. I'm happy to say that the very following day, on my request to take back that statement, because I have never commented on that particular, and in fact, I would never have commented on that particular case, because it's not only pending before court, it is in fact pending, which I presided over. So it would have been highly inappropriate to have commented on that. So that issue is buried.
Visit then the issue of access to courts.
I'd like to comment on the other
on
SMS about
the political influence.
You don't prescribe to your judges how. Every single judge is independent, is up by the JSC on his or her own merit. Like I said before, judges are appointed by the Judicial Service Commission. As judge president, you do not pick and choose who should be on your. They must appoint people of character and integrity, and people who will decide matters on their own, and anybody. So I don't for once think that judges need the protection of the judge president, independent judgments.
The JSE is been criticized to not be as independent. Some quarters are saying that the JSC is. Wouldn't that then lead to people thinking that the judiciary is?
And now that you talk about it, the JSC is not tainted. It presses people from various. Almost all political parties are represented in the JSC. The judiciary is represented, and for identifying judges is the best, one of the best in the world. In other jurisdictions, appointments are directly by politicians without even input from other quarters. So I think the JSC is doing its best in down the results, which are not easy. It's not an easy task, but like I said, sometimes here and there perhaps be made.
Let's talk about access to justice. This year, and there are many other issues where people still say to us, have access to justice. The poor are excluded from justice.
Truth in that, because litigation in this country is expensive. I may mention that sometime in the on my visit to Geneva, the offices of the Human Rights Commission there, of the fact that in all the cases that they found, justice was in South Africa very, very expensive case. So, indeed, the cost of litigation are a problem, but we need not. There are other creative ways we can find in doing so.
Please tell me about these issues.
Well, first we have to unpack access to justice, because it's not just about finance. It's about having a bench or judiciary which is representative of the people, which must reflect the populations. And you must also remember that foreign languages, the majority of people are being used in these courts. Maybe we should look into that. structure. You have got to, you may have to try physically to remote areas. You need more judges. You need more. It's a host of factors that have a bearing on this access to justice.
In the financial year of 2011 and 2012 had not even gone the courts. That backlog speaks to poor justice. If I'm awaiting trial and I have not even been heard for the whole year, that should not be.
Yes, unfortunately, crime in our country may be referring to other cases other than crime as well. Granted. Let me say again, it's a question of resources. I've got enough infrastructure to accommodate all those cases. As I'm talking to you, office at the end of this past month, offices for judges in Pretoria, we didn't have enough courtrooms. Instances where using the platoon system, where one judge would go in, vacate that particular courtroom so that another judge can use the courtroom in the afternoon. So these are some of the challenges. Magistrate, you need more judges. It's a question of resources. It's a question of trust. But really, we need to do something about that. Out what could possibly be.
I'd like us to explore it more, but 33726 is. I'm going to read some of your SMSs and the Facebook comments. Welcome back, Judge President, or at least retired Judge President Bernard Mwa. We're taking your SMSs and your Facebook comments. Speaking of Facebook comments, all of access, Joanne Mayer, Mr. Justice says, I commend those who are for voluntary legal services in representing poor rural communities by the court systems. Yet there are still citizens who do not have education and socio-economic reasons, and you spoke about this. What is solving it? We both acknowledge there are issues. The SMSs or the comments are saying that, but what are we doing to solve?
As regards the magistrate level, I magistrate commission, I think for over 10 years, until 2 years ago. So with issues around the magistracy, and I cannot speak up any authority, but let me speak about this. Obviously, my own court. I think, despite what I said earlier on, with regard to resources, I can mention that recently, 3 years ago, we opened a permanent court, and which is now handling on a more regular basis. And I think in the of taking justice closer to the people, because you'll remember, for example, at the border with Zimbabwe, would have to come to Pretoria for a simple. That court which we have planted in Polokwane would be more accessible to them. Again, there is now a permanent court under construction in Polokwane, almost complete, which, when complete, will have at least 15 courtrooms. People will be able to use that court. Apart from that, in Mpumalanga, which was also under jurisdiction, we are in the process of establishing a court out there. And in fact, there is before Parliament, which will come out soon, hopefully, which to establish a high court in Limpopo, a high court in all these, if complete, would be just people. So some things are being done, even though sometimes problems are being told that there are no resources.
Violence in this country is a very serious issue. Is that we are told that they've declined. Okay, the convictions have dropped. To citizens of this country that, as a woman sitting out, and they've been told that the conviction rate for sexual offences have dropped last financial year.
factors involved there. Remember, for a start, any crime in this country, in terms of the Constitution, they are presumed innocent. The state needs to prove that person guilty. So there may be challenges way towards that end. You may find that maybe the witness as good as they should be. Maybe the investigation by the police been good. And I don't want anybody tomorrow to come and quote me as saying that a black. You may find that perhaps cases have not been properly investigated. A host of other factors. So it's not as simple as all that.
But an element, and there has been a survey, by the way, that shows that there's also a lack of understanding by some magistrates because of their delicate nature. So some of our judicial officers to handle such delicate
need to train the judicial officers. No judicial officer, they know nearly enough. That's why it's necessary to have. That's why there is this idea of establishing training institute and so on and so forth. Yes, certainly. We do our best to train the magistrates upon their subjected to intensive training, but there's always room for. These matters are not easy.
Watching us at home and they hear that they're not easy. The first thing that they're going to feel, then things are not going to change, because if you're telling me that as we speak somebody is being raped or being abused at home by their husband, or confidence then that they would be one of the 18,000 people who would be sitting.
They need not be despondent, because by saying that they are not easy, criminals should be let to go free. Concerted effort to be properly handled, properly investigated. It cannot be easy to find anybody guilty, can it? So, because the state needs to prove that person guilty, situation where people are convicted on a mere suspicion. They are not easy. I'm saying that they need to be reported, because it's a number reported, we are told. They need to be properly investigated and handled and prosecuted.
As we close, or we are about to get there, what would be, in your view, greatest success of our judiciary in the last 18 years, and what is the biggest challenge?
I think the biggest by our judiciary has been to portray itself as the champion of, as the protector of our constitution and the protector of our democracy, ensuring that people enjoy their rights under the new constitution. It is made guardian of the constitution, and I think in that regard it has acquitted itself. Because challenges, well, they continue. The same challenges continue. They are new every time that come. But I think the judiciary needs to make sure it retains its credibility, and it should not its marks. It must operate within its turf, as the executive must also operate within their turf, and the legislature. So it is important that that kind of interrelationship is retained. Justice Bernard Ngwebe, thank you very much for joining us tonight. You're welcome. Interface will be back again next week. Email us on interface@co.za or catch us on Facebook. From me, Rems team. Good night.